Chapter 211 to 213 BOOM. The clash of the two Ikoku sovereignty created a grand sound upon their clash. Big Mom's overwhelmingly larger wave was toppling over the wave shot by Rocky. Under the great pressure, the ground under Rocky cracked, creating a round crater, rendering her hands holding the swords to shake heavily, almost falling off. The other sins behind her were caught off guard momentarily. There aren't many things one can do against a shockwave attack except evade it, take it head-on, or use a counter shockwave. The momentary shock soon subsided. While Rocky had wide, bloodshot eyes defending against Big Mom, the sins prepared to release their own Rokuogan. One of the criteria to be a sin was to be a master of all Rokushiki. The first was Wiper. He prepared to jump behind Rocky and help her. But, "I am fine. Stay away." Rocky's body transformed in an instant. This time, unlike with Katakuri, her hair didn't turn blonde since the transformation had stopped on her neck. She didn't want to become dazed in this fight, so it was better for her transformation to not reach her eyes. Feathered Serpent, Form 1.5. A tail sprouted out of her body. The tail moved like a whip, jumping forward and also releasing a Rokugan by acting like a third hand. Boo-im! Rocky's two-wave overwhelmed Big Mom's single wave. With a burst of wind, both shockwaves vanished. Ha! Reiki's breathing was hectic. Her hands were shaking. Big Mom was looking down at her with a furious look on her face. She didn't think the little snake would be able to match her impact. A grin formed on her face. "Mama! Seems like killing you would be more satisfying than I thought." Napoleon, who was in her right hand, turned into a belt and wrapped around Linlin's waist. Her left hand that was holding on to Prometheus, the mini-sun, moved over her head as Prometheus jumped on her hair. Her hair turned fiery, looking as if she was a true demon. From the looks of it, she would fight hand to hand right now. "Zeus!" Big Mom kicked the cloud under her feet. "Move towards her!" Zeus made a move and dashed towards Rocky super fast. Big Mom could see Rocky clenching her jaws and preparing to fight her head-on. By then, along with Wiper, everyone else had realized something. This isn't a fight Rocky can win. Wiper kicked the ground to reach for Rocky, but a leg appeared in front of his face that he swiftly evaded and jumped back. "You're going nowhere!" A tall woman with legs taller than the giant Jack stood in front of him with a stoned face. "Huh? Sweet Commander Smoothie?" Wiper grinned. "We will see about that." He kicked the ground while a fist of fire went towards Smoothie's face. "Oh, when you're against someone who can hit hard, or a person who can use Conqueror's coding, never use your giant snake form." That's what her brother had said. He also said doing so would get her killed. She can see what he meant. Against Big Mom, if she turned into her giant snake form, she would die. Not only would she not be able to dodge any attack, but her absolute defense also wouldn't work against a blow coated with Conqueror's haki. But is this any better? Cack! A giant fist with black lightning swirling around it hit her in the gut, causing Reiki's eyes to almost pop out. "Oh!" Big Mom looked at her with fury and disappointment. "Is that all you got? Come on! Attack me! Stop getting hit only!" Big Mom spread her arms, emphasizing her stomach and asking for an attack. She normally wouldn't do that, but she wanted to drive Rocky to the edge and make her realize how helpless she was. Rocky's swords were flown far from her. She was left with nothing but her fists. So this is the gap between her and an emperor, and she was so confident. Fuck. But fine. She wanted to get attacked. Rocky would attack. Rocky lifted her fist up, coating it with light and Ryuo. She threw a punch at Big Mom's stomach since she couldn't reach her face. Her arms were bulging with muscle. They moved at a terrible speed and came into contact with Big Mom's stomach. Big Mom's so-called steel skin couldn't stop Ryuo at all. Reiki's fist coated with light damaged her from outside while her insides were done in by advanced armament. Big Mom coughed out saliva. while her wide eyes were locked at Rocky. So the snake can also hit hard? Big Mom thought, both shocked and amused. Meanwhile, Rocky's arms moved fast, very fast, blurring and looking as if they were multiplied. She kept punching Big Mom's stomach, causing Linlin's body to skid back on the ground. Rocky didn't talk. She had her jaws clenched and her eyes sharp. After around 150 punches, Linlin moved her hand to smack Rocky away. But as her hand came towards Rocky, Rocky jumped up, kicking the air, and moved towards her giant face. "Old hag, giving me a chance to start punching was your last mistake." Reiki sneered and kicked towards Big Mom's giant face, her leg covered in light and ryuo. Rocky believed she was fast enough to hit her and back out. She was following the hit-and-run tactic. But, abruptly. No, it was not! Big Mom moved at a speed beyond hers and grabbed Reiki's leg with her giant hand. "Little snake! The battle ends here!" Reiki was rendered unable to process anything as Big Mom slammed her on the ground. "Ah!" Reiki crashed to the ground face first, but that wasn't the end of it. Big Mom raised her in the air again and slammed her down on the other side. "Bam!" Rocky groaned. Big Mom continued. "Bam! Bam! Bam!" The slamming continued for almost a minute as Big Mom stopped. Rocky was stuck to the ground, her chest facing the sky. Her eyes were empty as she stayed still. Pathetic. Big Mom raised her fist again, but before she could attack, a chuckle left Rocky. If you think a few slams to the ground is enough to take me down, then you're stupid." Rocky's body was shaking, but she was grinning. Big Mom grinned too. "Mama, you aren't as boring as I thought." She laughed. She snickered. But her face went serious the next second. "But it's time to end this." Big Mom raised her fist and coated it with not only Conqueror's Haki, but also Prometheus. She pushed her first forward, a great punch going towards Rocky's head. Just before the impact point, a trail of blue flame came in between Rocky and Linlin's punch. Big Mom's frown depended as her fist stopped. Ah, lucky. The trail of fire took the form of a humanoid creature. "I am not the physically strongest, so thanks for using a flame attack." Prometheus's yellow form started to turn bluish as an expression of pure bliss appeared on his face. From behind Wiper, Urouge came and fetched Rocky and took her far from here. Upon a turn of her head, Big Mom noticed all her children were defeated, even Zeus, who she sent to aid the others. But from Reiki's team, only Tsumi, Yona, Brook, and Short Motor were knocked out. Hancock, Wiper, and Urouge were relatively fine. Urouge took Rocky away, reaching Hancock, who was standing far from Big Mom. Big Mom had a momentary question. Why aren't they attacking at once? They surely don't believe this Wiper guy would be able to take her down by himself. She didn't need to wait for an answer. She looked down, and Wiper's body started shining bright all of a sudden. "Yo, did you know nitroglycerin explodes when it comes into contact with fire?" He grinned. "Ah, it seems I accidentally drank a bottle of nitroglycerin when you were checking out the others. Oops! Boo-ooh-im!" An explosion occurred. It wasn't huge, as Wiper concentrated the radius, but it was more potent because of the concentration. Smoke and dust rose all around and covered the area. Hancock aided Reiki to get up while they waited for the smoke to subside. The smoke subsided as an expected sight got uncovered. A charred and ruffled-haired Big Mom came into view with an unscratched but arm-broken Wiper in her hand. "You bastard!" Big Mom cried out. "You killed Prometheus!" "Ha!" Wiper chuckled. Blood trailed down his lips. "Worth it!" With pure anger filling her eyes, Big Mom grabbed Wiper's head, coated her palm in Conqueror's Haki, and bashed his head on the ground. The sound of a coconut cracking sounded, but Big Mom didn't stop there. She raised her feet and went to paste Wiper's head at once. But before she could do so, 3 humanoid figures appeared in front of Wiper's unconscious body. The person standing in front blocked Linlin's attack with her twin swords with a grin on her face. "I am healed. Time for a second round." "Shut up!" Big Mom was enraged. Her other hand rose to the air and slammed down on Rocky's swords. This time, a pair of large hands blocked her fist. It was Uruj who had a calm look on his face. Karma. Full counter. A similar black lightning that was covering Linlin's arms appeared from Uruj's palms as he released a counterwave of Big Mom's impact. A deep wound appeared in her arm as Big Mom screamed like a little girl. "Kya!" She was caught off guard. It's not every day she feels pain. So, her pain tolerance is very low. In days, she was unable to recognize the aerial attack coming toward her from above. Boa Hancock spun vertically in the air, her legs coated in armament as she was still not proficient at Conqueror's coding. Lunar Fall. The attack hit Big Mama in her head as her eyes went blank. She froze briefly, giving time to Hancock, which she used to smirk. A bad move. She should have backed off. Linlin's right arm moved and grabbed Hancock by her waist, while her right hand grabbed Uruj. Then, in a speed beyond Rocky could react, Big Mom slammed their heads together, causing the sound of coconuts cracking. This was an attack Uruj couldn't, since the countered force would only hit Hancock. Big Mom, with fiery eyes, cursed up fist, threw the two bodies on the ground. She towered over Reiki, who frowned deeply, preparing to defend instead of attacking. Big Mom took out Napoleon from her belt and raised it in the air. "Zeus!" she called as a fluffy cloud rose in the air from the silent battlefield on the side. "Give me thunder!" Zeus didn't make any sound. He just rose in the air, charged his electrons, and turned into a dark cloud. The sky turned black under the command of Zeus, the homie, as lightning crackled around his body. Crack! Zeus discharged a bolt of lightning down that went and hit Napoleon. A ball of lightning danced on Napoleon's tip, which soon turned purple after mixing with the black lightning released by Linlin's Conqueror's hockey. "Die!" With an angry shout, Big Mom slashed her sword downwards towards a sweating Rocky who was preparing to defend against an impossible attack. But, as expected, Big Mom's hand stopped midway. Lightning couldn't hurt people loved by God of Lightning. "Old whore, you better stop." Big Mom's body froze as she sluggishly turned her head towards the voice, towards Zeus. A person wearing nothing but tattered khaki pants sat above Zeus as if it was his throne, his chin resting on his cupped fist. He had a rope made of lightning on his hand, connected with the lighting ball on Napoleon. "Yo, been a while. Heard your son died? My condolences." "Amon, you brat." "Keck, sorry, but I am a bit busy. I would like to finish this ASAP." Big Mom opened her mouth to say something, but Amon vanished from above Zeus. He suddenly appeared above her head with his fist swung back. "Old hag, ever heard of? I heard it can take down emperors." Big Mom's eyes went wide as she realized what he meant. "Goodbye." Amon moved, but Linlin only saw a trail of white lines. A strong blow hit her in the forehead, exactly in the middle, and threw her to the ground on her back. "Kook! Why is this bastard here?" Reiki gritted her teeth. She almost got her. She prepared to dodge her final attack and finish her finally. But her dream to become the strongest is now done since he is here. Robin, that bitch. She probably called him on my back. Reiki sighed and sheathed her swords back. Reiki instead waited for Big Mom to get up since she was sure Linlin was fine. As expected, Big Mom stood up slowly with never-seen-before rage present in her eyes. "You bastard! You bastard!" Big Mom swung her sword on Amon, which just went through his body as if he was a hologram. "Ow! It doesn't work!" Amon merely sighed. Big Mom was relatively undamaged except for the fist imprint curved on her forehead in the middle of a crack. While leisurely dodging Big Mom's attacks, Amon pointed his hand towards Rocky, who got confused. Ignoring her, One of Rocky's swords jumped up from her sheath and went to Amon's hand. "I will borrow this for a second. I forgot mine." Amon didn't wait for any approval and turned his head towards the raging Big Mom. He held the sword horizontally in the air and charged electricity. "Amon, you brat!" Big Mom yelled. She was starting to lose her mind, causing her defense to drop significantly. "Let's try instead," Amon muttered. "It's a matter for him to use King Punch, since he can charge the attack that needs 1 hour in less than a second with his speed." Speed truly was a cheat. "Here we go." For a final touch, Amon added Conqueror's coating as a cherry on the top. He moved his hand, the charged-up sword moved faster than the speed of lightning, and went through Big Mom's raging right arm like tofu. Thud. "Wow, it works." Amon whistled as he saw Big Mom's arm falling on the ground freely. "Ah!" A huge shriek left Big Mom's lips as she fell on her knees. The velocity of the screech increased. It soon imitated the scene from the Whole Cake Island arc, but there were only 2 people to hear her sound. "All right, then. I don't like torturing elderly people." Amon shrugged with a barely amused look. "Goodbye." The sword moved again, this time, towards her head. Nothing was there to stop his attack. Nothing was there to block it. So, something that was clear from the beginning happened. Big Mom's severed head slowly fell on the ground while the screech perished away. One Emperor of the Sea, down. 2 hours later. "Ah!" Reiki rolled on her bed while screaming. "Why did you come?" she cried. "I almost got her." "Stop being annoying." Amon was sitting on a chair, staring at her with a deadpan look on his face. "You'd have been split in half by the last attack." "Ha!" Reiki sat up. "How do you know? I already blocked her strikes before." Amon sighed. "You think I came at the last moment? I was there from the time you stopped the Ikoku sovereignty, and I knew about this bullshit challenge of yours from a week ago, and before you ask, no, it was not Robin." Reiki's annoyed look turned into surprise. He continued. "I wanted to see how far you'd be able to go," Amon answered. "You did good, but you're far from being the strongest woman alive." This caused Reiki to frown. "Wait, what? Why? If Big Mom is dead, I should be the strongest woman left, right?" She was genuinely confused. From what she knew, she was the strongest after Big Mom. The only other name she could think of, Boa Hancock, wasn't on the same level as her. "Is there anyone else above me?" Amon laughed. "Well, not many, only one. She's Kaido's daughter, Yamato. From what I learned from Reo, she recently moved out of Wano in search of someone." Rocky frowned. "Yeah, I remember you talking about her. What makes you think she can beat me? How strong is she?" Amon thought of a proper example before saying, "Basically, she is strong enough to beat you and fuck you with a strap on." Reiki stared at him with disbelief, not digesting his words, but she soon realized her brother wouldn't lie to her. She rubbed her temple. "Okay, so why is she so strong? A special martial art?" "She has advanced Conqueror's Haki." "Ah!" With a groan, she fell on her back. "That shit again, I hate it so much." "Why did everyone have it? Even Hancock has it. Does that mean one day Hancock would surpass her?" Suddenly, Reiki blinked and got up. She ran towards Amon and sat on his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Hey, big brother, stop! Do something! I want to become the strongest woman!" She looked at him with puppy eyes while Amon stared at her with dead eyes. "You're not even a woman yet!" In the end, he sighed. "You know, you're being too bratty these days. This all could have caused me a lot problems. Imagine if the Sins died. You were too overconfident." He sighed. "I can give you a pass since I didn't stop you myself, even though I knew about it, but just don't do anything stupid like this before." He then started at her eyes silently. She didn't say anything, but the words did reach her. He was sure she wouldn't do something so irrational again. Well, at least not against Emperor-level enemies. Amon then shrugged. Fine. Since you're so genuine, I will do something. He dropped Rocky from his lap, all to the girl's grief, and took out a piece of paper from his pockets. He tossed it towards Rocky. Go to this address and tell them you want to learn Hashokan. Recognizing you, they'd teach it to you, though it depends if you can even master it in this life. Reiki caught the paper and stared at it with a tilt of the head. Hapo Navy? Wait, it's those people who we allied with 5 months ago? Yeah. Amon quickly shot a look around the room. This was the medic room of the Suzdal kingdom where all the sins were laying on the bed. Amon gave them teardrops of the dwarf princess from Dressrosa, so they don't need any more medical help. Anyway, I am going out. Reiki raised her head. Where? Where? Amon smirked, death flashing in his eyes. I have had the curry. Time for the dessert. Her people would cause too many problems later on if I don't eat them right now. Psst. 2 days later. What if? Flash grabbed a blade and slashed everyone in sight while running at the speed of light. A bloodbath. That's what would happen. Something similar had occurred in Whole Cake Island 2 days ago. In a matter of minutes, the cheerful island where all kinds of races used to live was dyed red. The people who were confused when all the homies suddenly fell asleep didn't expect an unavoidable attack at all. Amon killed them all. From people who would die for Big Mom, to people like Pudding, who wouldn't mind backstabbing her own mother. Not even a dog was spared. Their first mistake was, they were his enemy. Their second mistake was, they didn't have any use for him. So he simply eradicated them all. But of course, some who were his enemies did have use, such as them. They are the strongest of Big Mom pirates. Robin pointed forward. Smoothie, Cracker, Perospero, Daifuku, Oven, and some people not worth mentioning were on their knees, their hands cuffed behind their backs with sea stone. It's been a day. The news is yet to travel all over the world, so Amon was busy finishing his job here before going back to seclusion. Amon laid back on his chair. I was in need of some strong experimental subjects. Good to have you here. Hope we share a great work life together. His words went to the nerves of everyone present, but only one person was unable to control his feelings. You bastard! Free us this instant! Cracker tried to struggle, only to get zapped by lightning, causing him to fall face first with charred skin. Hiya! Just shut up! Amon shook his head, disappointed. Considering you used to serve a Yonko, I thought you'd be smarter. What makes you think I would free you after capturing you instead of going for a kill? They looked at each other's faces. Did Wiper fry your brain cells? Amon gazed down at him as he struggled to get up. As expected, a mere zap isn't gonna seriously injure a Yonko commander. He's right, Cracker. This time, the calm Smoothie talked. Asking for freedom is stupid at this point. I'd rather have him kill us. Oh, so sorry. Amon apologized. Wishful thinking. They were enemies, yes, but unfortunately, they had some uses left. Unfortunately, you can't die yet. You see, currently, I need test subjects for a useful experiment. You see, the current subjects are too weak, so they always die without even passing the first stage. So I need vessels strong enough to withstand at least the first stage. You lot would do the job. Every one of them glared at Amon. Not only did he kill their mother, but now they were going to die by his hands, too. And that death doesn't seem like it will be a slow one. What makes you think we'd compile? Perilyn? Perospero narrowed his eyes and asked, all to Amon's amusement. Interesting question. Amon scratched his cheeks. Robin, any idea you might have? Robin, who was standing beside Amon's chair, silently nodded. I suggest we take Charlotte Smoothie as a hostage and turn her into a prostitute like that celestial dragon. It seems the customers are waiting for a new product for quite some time. She would be a great addition. She added, she will be a prostitute as long as her brothers don't compile with us. The moment they act decently and we succeed at the Project Oars, she will be freed. This caused Smoothie to frown and every other remaining Big Mom pirates to snap. "You? How can you suggest something like that being a woman yourself? You demon bitch!" A guy who Amon didn't know yelled, trying to get up and attack him, only to fall face first. To their reaction, Amon smiled. "That seems to be a good idea. Congratulations, Robin. You outperformed today." Though the question was, would this actually work? Well, the news of the death of an emperor of the sea shook the entirety of the world. The 5 rulers of the world besides WG have been prominent since the death of Roger, but to think this day would come, every major power of the world were shocked to their cores. The details of the fight were unknown, like always. The news was as following. The 5th Emperor of the Sea, Sky Emperor, has effortlessly killed Big Mom, another Emperor of the Sea. The 5 Emperors have gone back to being Yonko. Will the government sit still at this development? In a corner of New World, a certain red-haired Shanks was sitting on a stone while staring down at the newspaper while his red hair fluttered in the air. "How much time did it take for him to kill Linlon?" Shanks asked, but there was no one around him. At his question, the air around him stirred, almost as if responding to him. 2? Interesting. So he has already come so far. At first, when he learned that a young man had become an emperor of the sea, he really wanted to go and meet Amon. But after Amon started to make moves on the world, he realized this young man wasn't someone who would sit still and talk if he went there. The death of an emperor isn't something I should ignore. Previously, he planned to go and meet Whitebeard and warn him about bringing back Ace. He had a guess that this would end up in a war with the Marines. But now that Big Mom has died, some other ideas popped up in his mind. If his guesses are correct, he needs to warn Newgate about this more seriously, because he believed if a war does occur, Amon would be a bigger worry than Blackbeard, or even the Marines. At first, when Amon became an emperor, causing Shanks to ask the world about him, he was confused as to why a soul who isn't a reincarnation of Joy Boy or Zebek possessed so much importance to the will of the world. To this day, even with his voice of all things, red-haired Shanks hasn't gotten an answer to that. A.N. If you haven't realized already, I have made Shanks a real buffed-up character. His only drawback is his more or less human-like body that can't match Kaido or Big Mom.